I did a full overview of the 2022 Hyundai Santa Fe on my channel, and I wasn't able to do a test drive. I was at a dealership, and even if I did do a test drive, it'd be downtown Wilmington, North Carolina, and it would just be kind of more of a bumper-to-bumper type test drive. So I have access to a 2022 Santa Fe. This is in the Calligraphy trim level, and I was going to I drove it for the last few days. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do a night video on it. I did drive it a little bit at night, and I noticed the headlights were very lacking. So I was looking forward to showing you that, but I wasn't able to do it because of hurricane problems and, scheduling problems. This vehicle's, anyways, I have access to do the test drive video anyway right now. And so, yeah, we're just going to experience it driving down the road, and I'm going to share my thoughts as far as me driving it and my experience with it. I'm really liking the camera system. It has a button that you can quickly turn it on, but I wish it had the ability to just turn on when you slow down, like some brands do. But it works really good, especially backing out of parking spaces. It has the full parking sensors in this trim, and it looks really good, the camera itself, and and it does a good job of stitching things around the vehicle, so you can see it accurately. So this one also has the blind spot camera system, so it turns on the camera there in the gauges, and it shines on the side of the vehicle in what you're turning when you turn the turn signal on. And it's good for seeing if there's a vehicle in your blind spot. It also has the blind spot detection system in addition to this, but it's also really good for when you're making a turn and you want to watch out for, like, say, a mud puddle, or if you want to watch out for the curb, or maybe another vehicle is next to you very close and you need to kind of squeeze through. You have this very definitive view beside the vehicle, and it helps out a lot in a lot of scenarios, not just changing lanes and making sure that there's not a vehicle in your blind spot. So the acceleration for a four-cylinder engine, it's really impressive. It's able to accelerate nice. Now it feels more powerful since it's a turbo when the RPMs are higher. So sometimes it's like by the time you get the RPMs up and you get that acceleration, you're pretty much at speed limit already, so you kind of have to back off on it. But it's like it's really coming to life when you go at that higher RPMs. Now the dual clutch transmission is really good for accelerating, and you're just going up to speed, and you're just kind of normal highway speeds and normal driving conditions where you're driving on roads. The only issue, well, it's not really an issue, it's just a characteristic of dual clutch transmissions, that when you want to creep forward, like say you're going through a drive-through, or maybe even going very slow into a parking space or something like that, the way the dual clutch is, it's either engaged or disengaged. So it kind of lurches forward sometimes, and then when you push the brake, it just comes to a complete stop. And then it's like, well, no, I don't want to stop. I want to creep, So it doesn't really creep all that good. So it's constantly want to kind of like lurch forward and stop, lurch forward and stop. So it's just one of those characteristics because it's a clutch system. So it's not going to sit there and slip the clutch. So if you had a manual transmission, you can just kind of like briefly release the clutch and then let it coast forward into the position that you want. But this one, you don't have control over that, so you kind of have to work back and forth the brake and the accelerator. So it's a little bit different than, say, a torque converter type system in which you have the ability to kind of keep pressure, forward momentum pressure, or forward pressure on the vehicle, and then you just kind of easing off of the brake and it kind of slowly moves you forward. But driving like this, like we're doing now, get back out of the tangent there, but this is very very pleasant experience. The height of the vehicle is nice. It's relatively quiet. It's a little bit of a windy day, and you can hear a little bit of wind noise. But exterior noises, like other cars, is very minimal, and it's just easy to steer, easy to drive. It has decent visibility because of the height off the ground, and it feels very stable. It doesn't feel, it's not a heavy vehicle. It doesn't feel heavy anyway, and it doesn't. You're not having any kind of leaning or rocking forward and back when you accelerate. And like I mentioned, that driving at night with the headlights, that was a little bit of an issue because it's not really taking advantage of the height of the vehicle since the headlights are a little bit lower, and they weren't bright enough, and they were in a higher position, and they have this, they're just not all that great. Typically you have like a little notch or not so high position on the oncoming lane for the cutoff of the low beams. Well, this one has like a super low notch to where when you're going around curves, that notch lines up in your lane, and it really limits your visibility. So headlights are an issue, and I don't know what's going on there. And if you have a Santa Fe and you have more experience with the vehicle than I do, let me know about the headlights. Maybe there's some kind of way you can increase the brightness or maybe adjustments. Maybe that has to be adjusted properly. I'm not sure, but it was on the poor side for headlights. And maybe I'll be able to do a night video for another time, maybe for the 2023 model or something, and show you what I'm talking about if they hadn't changed it. But yeah, the dual clutch in this particular driving is perfect. It feels solid. It feels like it just, you just engage every gear properly, and it takes advantage of the full acceleration and the power of the engine and all that. So yeah, other than just trying to creep around in a parking lot or through a drive-through, the transmission is great. I really like it. And the overall features of this vehicle, it has the full camera system. It has the blind spot camera systems. It has the heated steering wheel, heated and ventilated seats. And the seats are nice and comfortable. Hadn't had any issues with them at all. And I like the fact that it has the push button. As you saw if you saw the full overview of this vehicle, it has push button shifter, so there's no shifter getting in your way. It's electric system, so it's not a big deal. And another issue, I'm gonna nitpick at this point for sure, but the wireless charger position, it's in theory it seems fine, and it's probably fine for most people, but it doesn't work for my phone. I have to take the cover. The case I have does not fit in there, so I take the case off, and then I put the phone in there. And the phone's kind of slippery without the case, so it's kind of slipping around in there. And also, it has to but it has to rub the screen against hard plastic in order to put it in and out. So, not really a fan of that particular vertical position for the wireless charger. For my phone, anyway. Some people might be fine with it, depending on what kind of phone they have, what kind of case they have, that kind of thing. But yeah, you driving this vehicle, it's easy to get in and out of it. It has good braking. It has good, cornering, and easy to turn the steering wheel. You can kind of zip around real easy. The acceleration is good. It's just that high RPMs. It's like it teases you. Like by the time you reach the speed limit is right when the engine comes to life, and it's like, well, I got to back off now. We're just starting to have a little bit of fun with the acceleration, and I have to back off. Which is pretty common with gasoline engines, internal combustion type engines. You have to have the RPMs at an optimal range for it to have that acceleration feel and fun. So yeah, that turn signal, when you put on the turn signal, that camera there pops up, and I can see where I am in relationship to the lines. or anything. Really handy. I wish all vehicles had that. Yeah, I think in the future, more manufacturers will utilize camera systems more effectively. I don't know if you can hear those cars going by. There's a very, very small amount of sound getting in the vehicle. I also want to mention that, when you hear the vehicle being recorded by a camera, it's gonna amplify a lot of sounds. So it's hard to make unless you do a comparison with another vehicle that's recorded with the same camera. It's going to be it's going to be hard to actually make a definitive judgment based on what you're seeing and hearing on a video. Because a lot of times I'll drive a vehicle and people make the comment, they're like, wow, that's a really loud car. And to me, it was like one of the quietest cars, So the camera will amplify sounds. It's making adjustments to background noises and amplifies them. So keep that in mind. And I do have like the Genesis G90. I recorded with the same camera. So if you want to do like a comparison, the G90 is very quiet. So if you want to do a comparison between this vehicle here with the same camera and that video, the test drive portion, to see the relative differences there, since it's a comparison 1-to-1 and it's not just one video and you're like, sounds really loud, because that is kind of a big issue for people seeing a test drive. The test drive portion is very subjective, and I try to give you useful information that I can, because if it's real easy to misrepresent your experience or to misinterpret or have a particular bias that can shine through in a test drive subjective experience. In the end, really, it's up to you to drive the vehicle and make sure that you're satisfied with the experience. Because, like, I can drive a car and it feels fine to me. I mean, it's just totally perfect for me, but you get behind the wheel and it's completely wrong for you. So you don't want to take not just my opinion or my thoughts on a test drive as solid. Anybody's test drive, that's their particular subjective experience. And it's very important to remember that, because with the low availability of vehicles, you kind of have to rely on videos similar to this to get an idea about the vehicle. But I wouldn't necessarily make a conclusive decision based on the test drive portion, because it's hard to accurately. Even if I were to make the perfect, accurate, 1-to-1 representation of the test drive, which is hard to do because of the volume of the audio is going to be skewed. The visuals are going to be not perfect. It's not going to convey the space. Like you're only seeing this little tiny space here, and even if I were to expand it out to a larger view, then it's just kind of stretched out and it kind of appears larger than what it is. So there's a lot of things that you can't really convey. I've tried 360 cameras. I've tried different ways of conveying a test drive, and there's always some kind of limitation as far as trying to convey it objectively. And even anybody or anybody that's making a test drive video portion, it's a very subjective experience as far as the video part, that you have to kind of read between the lines, see what and does and doesn't apply to you, and then actually drive the vehicle if possible before you buy one, because it is a make or break experience. When I sold cars and I worked with customers, some people were just gung-ho, ready to sign papers and buy a car. It's like, well, we need to test drive it first. And when they test drove it, they realized it wasn't it wasn't for them, you know. So it's there's a lot of times in which either there are some people like, I'm not going to buy that car no matter what. I was like, well, let's just test drive it, and they test drive it, and then they had a great time, and they actually bought the vehicle because it was a different experience than they thought it was going to be. So it goes both ways. So yeah, test drive videos are, like I said, hard to convey accurately, and there's so much that can be misinterpreted or misrepresented or anything like that. Okay, another tangent over. Alright, I'm going to put it back in comfort. Engage the cruise control. So we're going 62, and RPMs are around 1600. And staying pretty consistent in that 1600 mark, going this fast. Hear a little bit of road noise. A little bit of wind noise. Nothing significant. Nothing that a little bit of background music won't drown out.